Hello, welcome back to this random table where I fix stuff. Today we have a Burroughs Class 3, but not just any Burroughs Class 3. Two things I found interesting about this machine. One is it has a fractional column here, so 1/4, 1/2, and 3/4 buttons in this column. But the most interesting thing I think about this machine is that this represents the lowest ratio of calculating power to machine size that I've ever seen. So this machine only has 3 full columns and then one is called a 3/4 column of calculating capacity, and it only has a button for total. No subtotal, no repeat, no special functions. All it does is add and total, and it only has basically 3.5 columns of capacity. So if you look in the window here, you can actually see where they've blocked out this space and this space. So you only have digits in the middle there. So I thought it was kind of funny for that Burroughs made this regular sized class 3 with such limited capacity. I'm not sure who would have bought a machine like this when it was new. I don't think these are particularly common because I don't think I've ever seen a Burroughs class that had fractional numbers at all. And this is the only Burroughs class 3 I've ever seen that had less than 5 columns of capacity in the keyboard. So definitely low capacity. I'm pretty surprised they made a machine with this low capacity. Looks like they didn't sell many of them, unless this is just like a demonstration piece or something. I really don't know. Anyway, this machine does not work. Let's enter 4.5, well, 444.5. You can watch the numbers in the front there. You can see that the middle 2 columns are stuck. So the middle 2 columns don't move at all. So we'll have to get into this, see if we can fix that. I'm expecting this thing to be pretty empty inside, so let's see. So the first step to taking apart a class 3 is this thing has to come off. So I've taken a screw out here and a screw out there. So I just got to take these 2 top ones out. So that one comes out, and then this one. And this thing should just basically lift out of here, which it does. So quite a bit of dust built up there. There's actually quite a lot of dust. It's kind of an impressive amount of dust, I would say. So this thing, this is a nice big cast piece here. You can see how thick the casting is on that. So it's a nice heavy cast piece. Holds the paten and the paper holder, and there's a little roller down in there to keep pressure against the paten. So that comes off, and then this tray should just lift out. Try and not drop the dust down inside. You can see down in there, you can see the mechanism already. That's pretty dusty. Then on the back of the machine, there's these 2 screws. I think these are both supposed to be thumb screws like this, so they probably lost that one and just stuck any old screw in there. So these should come out. Hopefully. So if you look at the shaft of this one, it has focus. It has that thick portion and then the screw here. And if you look at the shaft at this one, it has like the same thick portion just without the thumb screw head. So I don't know, maybe the thumb screw head broke off of that one and then just cut a slot in or something. I'm not sure. Although looking at the 2 of them combined, you can see that the if I can show it here, the thick portion of the non-thumb screw is a lot shorter than the thicker portion of the thumb screw. And so I don't know. Anyway, not really important. So those are both out. You can already get a nice whiff of that old oil smell. It smells like steam engines. So I think on my other class 3, lifting this up was enough to trip the latch in the front, but that may not be the case in this one. So turn this back around. Still as heavy as a regular class 3, just with limited functionality. See if I can use my knife trick on this one too. Well, maybe it won't work here. Alright, I'm going to have to play with this a little bit. This is a lot tighter in the front than the last couple Burroughs I worked on, so let me see if I can pop the latch on the front to get this open. Alright, so I didn't have to use my knife trick. It turned out that when this was on here, I just lifted the back up, and what I had to do was push the total down. So I pushed the total down so that I could lift, because it only has this small slot here. I pushed the total down so that I could lift this up without the back of this slot hitting the back of the total arm. So basically, push the total arm down, then I lift this up, and then like over top. And after I lifted it past a certain point, it just popped off the latch in the front. So that's off. I don't think I've ever actually seen the key that's supposed to go in there. So I don't even know what the key would look like to try and find one, if I would be interested in finding one. But anyway, so that's off. So let's take a look at what we've got here. What I can see so far is quite a lot of dust. So if we've got, ooh, bonus, we got a safety pin. So we got a leaf, a rusty safety pin, got a humongous pile of dust everywhere. You can see the only, what, 6 of those things? Yeah, 4, 5, 6. And then this one's probably going to be like the total one. That one's pretty gummy too. So let's see if I push this out. Yeah, these, I'm not even showing it. These ones are just a little gummy. They will come up with some coercion. Let's see if this one will come up. Oh, that one's stuck. See if I can push. Well, yeah, so they're just a little bit gummy. I'll have to do some investigation to find out what is sticking on them. But yeah. I wonder if that was missing 0. Oh right, we still have to have a 0 for this, like for your totaling. This would be the half column, I think. I don't think it's this one. I think this is the total one. Well, let's see. If I put in 3/4, yeah, punches 3/4. So that column actually has quite a few digits in it then. Let's take a look at what's actually in that column. I'll have to walk around the back. Alright, so I'm not sure, hopefully you can see, these are the dies on that 1/4 column. Let me actually... So what can we see here? Okay, so it has what, 1/8, 1/4, say 3/8, 1/2, 5/8. Okay, so this is actually set up then for not only quarter fractionals, but also eighth fractionals. So I guess that's another place where they cheaped out on this machine. Instead of having a key for like 1/8, 3/8, 5/8, and 7/8, they just skipped that and just only used the quarters, even though they already had this piece set up to be eighths radians. So apparently there either was or was planned to have another model that would have the eighth keys there, but this is like the super budget version, doesn't even have those. So, alright, so that's why there's so many punches in that column. So what's the first one then? Oh, I didn't raise it high enough. Let me enter that. So the first one is 1/8, right? Okay. I guess that makes sense then. You wouldn't want to have a 0. I guess you wouldn't need a 0/8 in that column. So it does make sense that there's no 0 for that column. So if you have like 2 1/4, it'll put, 2 1/4. But if you have 2 and no fraction, just put 2 with a blank in this column. So that actually does make sense. So that solves that mystery of why there's so many punches in that column. Let's try cleaning some of this dust up and then see if I can figure out where the middle 2 columns are sticking. Okay, so I've taken the keyboard out and I've got that freed up. I wanted to take the keyboard out just to get for one thing, to be able to get a hold of these things to wiggle them. Those are the sliders that slide down each time these things go up. So I want to be able to wiggle these, so I took the keyboard out to get at that. and it turned out that the sticking part was actually back here, right in this thing. This shaft is stationary, and then these rods then go down here and then come up and around as the print heads. So right here it was sticky, so all it did was loosen up this 3/4 nut here, and then I was able to work each of these little washers over. And these are actually special washers. They look like they're that thick up top, and then they have a little bit of a ridge on the inside that these pieces ride on. So these washers actually have little ridges that stick inside these things, so that these things don't ride directly on the shaft. I'm not quite sure why they did that, but that's what they did. So anyway, I just loosened this up, worked these over, cleaned out all the old gunk with some lacquer thinner on a Q-tip, and then oiled it up, put it back together, and now, when I pull the handle, you can see all of the print heads rise up, and the register is driven. So that should be good. I think we're ready to put the keyboard back in. While I was in there, I cleaned most of the dust out and then oiled everything that I could get to. So you notice there's also little oil holes here, and then there's some in the frame. You can see there's one right there and one right there. Just most of the shafts that go through have little oil points on them. So I think we are ready to put the keyboard back in. Now, interesting on the keyboard, if you remember the keyboard out of the other Burroughs that I repaired, that Burroughs class that I repaired a couple months ago, that was I think that one had 7 columns, and that was a little bit older than this one because it had the older Burroughs logo. But that one, the keyboard was flat. This one, you can see the keyboard mechanism itself is slanted. If you remember on that one, it had the nice cast pieces. I think it was in the front, maybe on the sides. I don't exactly remember, but I know that the frame was made of nice cast pieces, whereas on this one, it's all just stamped. Now, granted, it is pretty thick metal. I'm sure if you can see, there's probably at least 1/8 of an inch there. See how thick it is. It's nice heavy metal, but it's not cast like the old style was. And the way that they did this is really weird to me. So if you look down here, there's no really good way to show this, I guess. Because you can't really see in the back, it's kind of dark. But they have these really weird key stems. So, yeah, I don't think you'll be able to see it. Didn't help. You can kind of see it. So, notice when I pushing on the 3/4 key now, you can see the key stem in this column wiggles, but also the little tabby thing in the next column wiggles too. See that little thing wiggling there? So the key stem actually goes down and then over and then up the other side, and on that little stubby thing on the other side is the actual latch for when you push the key down. I'm not quite sure why they did it that way. I know on the other Burroughs that I took the keyboard apart on to repaint the top plates, it was definitely not like that. It was just solid key stems all the way down, or just a single key stem. It doesn't have that weird wraparound thing. And it looks like only some of the columns in here have it. Like this column has it wrapping around the other direction, but it looks like this column and this column are just straight normal key stems. So I don't really know why they did that at all and why it's only on some columns, but anyway, just a little interesting piece there. So the keyboard has this rod in the back, and you can see by the wear pattern there and there, those go into these 2 little hooks right here. So if you watch when I pull the handle, you can see these little hooks pop out. So you can see or not, these things right here. Now those pop out when you pull the handle, and then when it returns, it pulls it back. And that is a keyboard lock. So right now, all the keys are locked. But if you pull this rod back, that opens up the keys. So now you can push them. And then now that it's back again, now they're going to be locked. And this is the keyboard release, this thing right here. I'm not sure if it'll release. Yeah, well. So if you release it and then unlock the keys pop back up. So that part is actually the same as the other Burroughs. The other Burroughs also had this rod in the back and had this same mechanism here. And then I think it was this piece maybe? Might have been this piece or some part of this mechanism is the repeat. I think it was this. When you push repeat down on the other machine, it held this down, and then it would not clear each time. This machine does not have repeat because it is the super base model. And actually, you can see in the register here, even this digit here has the eighths divisions. You can see 3/8 right there. Let's see if I can see 5/8, 7/8, and then 1/8. So clearly they either intended to or did have an option with eighth keys on the keyboard, but for some reason this machine does not have the eighth keys. It's the super cheapo budget model. So let's see if I can put the keyboard back in on camera. Not sure if this will go very well. Oops. But you have to hook the, you have to get the feet under this thing. That's not under yet. So you have to get those under there, and then you have to hook the, this is not going to go very well. To hook the rod back in. I'm too far over for some reason. It's supposed to go over further. Yeah, I'm not going to do this on camera. It's going to be me fighting with it for a while. Something is going over far enough. Not sure what it is. So yeah, I'm going to have to fight with that for a while to get that back in. Can't do it on camera. Actually, it's a lot easier than I thought. The only issue was the total key is not spring loaded on the keyboard. It's just spring loaded by this lever that it rests on. So that had fallen down and was preventing the keyboard from sliding over far enough. So once I lifted this up, it basically fell right in and even latched right into the hooks in the back. So a lot easier than I thought it would be. But anyway, so now you can see the register in the front. Let's try 1, 2, 3, and 3/4. 1, 2, 3, and 3/4. So now if I add 1/4, it should roll over. Which it does. Now I have 4. So total clears it out. So we can try our favorite calculation. We have just enough columns to do it. And that's correct. Alright, so mechanically this seems fine. I sprayed some WD-40 on the ribbon because last time I did that with the other Burroughs class, the ribbon came right back and has been working just fine ever since. So let's see if this ribbon is of the same type. Maybe it'll work just as well. Other than that, I forgot to mention I did add some more oil to this thing. So it doesn't feel that resistive. So maybe I need to add a little bit more in there, but it definitely feels less resistive than my other class 3. So maybe it's still not quite full of oil yet. So I'm gonna add some more oil in there, but other than that, I think mechanically this is good. You can just put it back together and load some paper, and hopefully that'll be it. We're going to put this back together. I wanted to point out a couple interesting things about the case here. Actually, this one too. So I think I mentioned before in my other video that this base plate is one solid piece of cast iron. And if you look at it, you can see how thick it is. So this base piece alone is probably at least like 25, 30 pounds. It's a heavy piece. This piece is cast aluminum. And I've never actually seen a class 3 that didn't have both total and subtotal. And I wanted to see whether they used the same casting, whether they used a different one. You can see there's only one hole there. Now it could be that they used the same casting and then just drilled those holes later. That I don't know. So maybe they did use the same casting and then drilled either one hole for just total or 2 holes for total and subtotal. But in this case, there is only one hole, so not sure if it's the same casting or not, but could be, could not be. Not sure about that. Another interesting thing about these is this plate. So they made this entire whole cast thing, one big piece, and then for some reason, this plate is a separate piece, this nameplate with the Burroughs on. Same way in the other older Class 3. So I'm not sure whether they had initially intended to have like a glass window here or what, but for some reason they have the nameplate as a separate sheet metal stamped piece that's just bolted into the cast piece. You can see here on the back it's just this thin sheet of metal, and then it's just screwed in 4 places. So not quite sure what the deal is with that. And then the final thing is this glass window here. Yes, this one does have a crack in it, but luckily it's just a straight up and down crack, so when you look directly at it, it's hardly noticeable really. But the interesting thing is this piece of glass is like a 1/4 inch thick. Not sure if you can see. So that is the side of that piece of glass. I have no idea why they thought they needed such a humongously thick piece of glass in there. I think the thickness of that glass is about the same thickness as the glass sides of the Class 1. So I'm not quite sure why that's so thick, but anyway, interesting thing is about this. Let's put it back on. It should just latch in now if I get my total lined up. There we go. So it should just latch in. It's not latched in yet. There we go. Now it's latched in. So it's locked in the front, and in the back it's those screws to hold it in. And then a total key goes back on. I have oil on my fingers, I want to get oil on it, but so we'll screw that back in and then put the pattern, this piece back on. Actually, this piece can probably go back on now. So this piece interacts with the line advance mechanism. So you can see this right here. Every time that gets pushed, it advances 1 line. So there's a little finger in the back there that comes up and pushes that. So I'm not sure whether, yep, you can see line is advancing. So, and I forgot to put that plate back in. So I actually have to take that back out again because somehow this picked up a resistor. This isn't mine there. This plate has to go in first, so I have to take that back out and slide this in and then put that back in. But anyway, you get the idea. So put that back in, screw everything in, and see if our ribbon will be serviceable. Alright, so everything's all back together now. I just threw this old roll of paper in because that's what I had laying around. It'll work fine for demonstration purposes. So let's do 1, 2, 3, and 3/4. And it looks like printing is working fine. Not sure if you can see the register there. 1, 2, 3, and 3/4. So if we add 1/4, should roll over, and it does. Let's do clear. Let's do 1/4. Now if I add 1/2, I should get 3/4. And I do, and if I add 3/4, I should get 1 and 1/2. And I do. So that seems to be working. That's just 2. So yeah. So I'm not quite sure what the intended purpose of this column is, because if you look at what we printed out so far, on this one, you can kind of see the decimal point there. So basically what we printed out here is 1.23 and 3/4. Is that supposed to be like 3/4 of a cent? I'm not sure, because like normally all the Burroughs have the decimal point here. So this is your dollars past here, and this is your cents over here. But this has like cents and 1/4 of a cent. I'm not quite sure what the point is, unless they just didn't feel like making special print heads without the decimal point. So they could have just used normal columns or see, I'm not sure. Because if you notice, these columns don't have the decimal point, it's only on this column. So like the second, or the third column has a decimal point, and then every third column, or every fourth column, I guess, after that has a comma for thousands. on the larger capacity machines. Of course, this machine doesn't go that high, but I think it's weird that they have the decimal point still here, because they could have just used, the same style print head as these columns have without the decimal point in this column. So I'm not quite sure what the point of that is, but it's kind of weird. Anyway, we can do our favorite calculation. Some of these keys are a little bit wet yet because I just wiped them down, cleaned the keyboard a little bit, so I think that one just has a little bit of water on it. It didn't quite dry, but anyway, that's the correct answer. That's out the correct answer, and it clears out. See there, everything seems to be printing pretty much fine. A little bit of didn't print quite clearly there, but that's kind of typical for these machines. Don't always print exactly perfect every time, but anyway, so I think that's going to be it for this video. Hope you enjoyed this look at a quick repair on this super basic, probably the cheapest Burroughs Class 3 model available ever. I've never seen a machine this basic before, so just wanted to do a little video on this just because it's so weird and I know that Burroughs was so cheap. So anyway, hope you enjoyed this video, and thank you for watching.